wasn't a very fluid week for us in terms of dealing with COVID in the manner in which we had to. We had a number of significant guys that weren't allowed to come to work. We were working remotely from a meeting standpoint, didn't have a lot of exposure to our guys. So there was a lot of anxiety about just feeling good about the prep. And it's good to kind of face that and persevere and come and have that type of performance.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I'm Missi Matthews. The Steelers are now 9-0, and if anybody loves adversity and fighting through it, it of course is Coach Tomlin. The Steelers had a lot of that heading into their game yesterday with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me introduce you to our panel here today to break it all down. Craig Wolfley of DVE and also Steelers.com. We also have former Steelers outside linebacker, Hall of Famer, I had to throw that one out there. Arthur Moats is joining us, and Bob Labriola of Steelers.com and Steelers Digest. 36-10 win over Cincy. Guys, Coach talked about it right there. No practice for Ben Roethlisberger. It felt like it was no problem. He was 27 of 46, 333 yards. Oh yeah, and by the way, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So Wolf, I have to say, for no practice, he said after the game he threw 50 balls on Friday, an extended walkthrough on Saturday. It felt like he still had a little extra juice, though, in that arm. What did you take away from his performance?
Oh, he looked just terrific. I'll bet you Ashley and the kids at home really glad that he's back at work and not making them run go routes and option routes at home there. So the fact is, you look at Ben and what he went through, I think that since he came in and decided, you know what, it's going to be bad weather, Ben's not going to practice all week long, though it's going to be real windy. What say we stack the box and make him beat us? And you know what? He did. I mean, it's just the way it went. They went about it, and he beat them. Just being able to do what he's got upstairs.
Arthur, prior to the start of this season, Coach Tomlin kind of put it out there for his defense that the AFC North is made up of all Heisman Trophy winners except for Ben Roethlisberger, and those guys are who you will be facing. The Steelers have faced all 3 teams, all Heisman Trophy winners. Can we say that Ben Roethlisberger is the king of the AFC North?
Without a doubt. For me, when I look at Big Ben, experience is the thing that shines bright when you're comparing him to Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield. Obviously, Joe Burrow, he has a ton of potential, but you could just see where he lacked in the experience department. Some of the things that he was doing after he started getting hit a lot more, you saw, his decision-making slow down a little bit. He didn't look as crisp as he looked 2 weeks prior to that against the Titans and against some of these other teams. To me, man, when I see this defense, they do such a great job of just creating havoc. We saw where Joe Burrow, he looked very uncomfortable. That was probably the first time I've seen him look uncomfortable in a game this season. Even when he's taken hits, he's been one of the most sacked and most hit quarterbacks in the league. But typically he looks calm and collected. But the Steelers defense, man, just did a great job of finding ways to make him uncomfortable and ultimately create that hostility that we love to see as a Pittsburgh fan.
Was there anything Arthur Ben did yesterday that impressed you, knowing that he basically had no interaction in person with his teammates until Saturday?
Yeah, I thought his timing looked really good, especially, we thought early on he would have a little bit of just miscommunication, the time would be off. And I thought we saw that a little bit in that first quarter, just in terms of when they were getting the short field, them not being able to punch it in and score points. We were having to settle for field goals. But I was super impressed at how quick he got up to speed with the guys. We saw the bomb that he hit to Deontay Johnson. We saw him and Juju fall back on their rapport. And then obviously him and Claypool. I mean, just some of the throws that he was making. That touchdown pass to Deontay, that's timing right there. I mean, Deontay, you can see he's one step out of the break and the ball is already on him. That's trusting your receivers. That's saying that we're all on the same page. And that's ultimately, man, that experience and execution coming to fruition right there.
All right, Labs, I know Ben was your player of the game yesterday. You also wrote about him extensively in Labriola on. What did you make, and is this the best football you've seen from number 7 overall this season so far throughout his 17-year career?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the guy has played so well for so long. I hesitate to say that what he's doing now is by far better than anything he's ever done, because he's done some pretty amazing things. But the thing with a quarterback is, it's so much. He is so excellent from the neck up, to borrow a Mike Tomlin catchphrase. Ben's command, his understanding, of the game, of the offense, of what defenses are trying to do, really to me is what separates him certainly from the other Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks in the AFC North, and a lot of separates him from a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL as well. Ben is truly in command. One of the ways I describe it is it's the difference between playing quarterback and being a quarterback. A quarterback is more than just a position on a football team, or a job description for an athlete. It's a presence, the leadership, the calm. Everybody looks to this guy in tough times or when somebody needs to make a play, and he's delivering on a regular basis.
Okay, guys, we are going to take a quick break here on the Extra Point. When we return, we will talk about TJ Watt and his welcome to the AFC North for Joe Burrow. We'll be right back.
Now Roethlisberger fires downfield, and the catch is made by Deontay Johnson. He took some air under it, and Johnson makes the catch in Bengals territory.
The Steelers official mobile app is your window into your favorite team. Behind-the-scenes access.
Oh, man, he is just running so hard.
Live audio, including game broadcasts.
That's what you call smart football.
Statistics. Press conferences and interviews. And Steelers Nation Unite exclusive access and benefits. That's all in the Steelers official mobile app. Download it for free today.
Yeah, I think it's very important to welcome quarterbacks in the AFC North the appropriate way. And scoring points like that and holding the offense to the way we did, we try to do that to the best of our ability. We know Joe Burrow is their franchise quarterback, and we're just trying to let him know what he can expect when he comes in Pittsburgh.
All right, that was outside linebacker TJ Watt following the Steelers' win over the Bengals yesterday at Heinz Field. The Steelers since 2004 are now 25-4 against starting rookie quarterbacks. And Wolf, we have to start with the obvious stat. When you talk about the Steelers' defense, they held Joe Burrow and company 0 for 13 on third down. I know the third down conversion rate, something that we talked about in prior weeks, and the stat that we kept talking about on the radio broadcast, the last time an NFL team held another team to 0 for 13 or worse on third down was the New York Jets versus Arizona in December of 2012. So what did you make of this defensive performance yesterday, Wolf?
I thought it was magnificent. You had a young man. You got him in there with Keith Butler and the Mike Tomlin mindset. You dial up the pressure. You play really tight coverage. If anybody saw Joe Hayden on 3 of those passes defense, he was a great example of it. Then you did some nice disguising on the back end. I thought it was a nice job because you could see Burrows was having more problems later on as he went along, as they were trying to disguise things. And the pressure, like I said, got to him. You love the fact that TJ Watt, they got the twist and shout. I call it the chubby checker twist and shout because they run a twist game, and because they're on different levels, you can pick a guy. And the shouting comes after when you, as an offensive lineman, like, for instance, the first time I played Lawrence Taylor, all right, as a rookie in New York, and they ran a twist, and he went by me so fast, all I could do was shout, "Look out, Terry," because he was coming with some heat. And that's what they were able to do. They got some heat home. Bud Dupree, TJ Watt, and the rest of the crew.
All right, you brought up Joe Hayden and Arthur after the game. He said what TJ said was more of like a respect thing in terms of also welcoming these young quarterbacks to the AFC North. But the other thing he said they were doing to Joe Burrow is playing cat and mouse. So what did you see in terms of the confusion and the disguising, as Wolf said?
Yeah, that showed up in a big way. When you talk about the pre-snap movement, just being able to operate from cover 3 to cover 1, but making them all look the same. As a defense, man, if you can make the quarterback have to hold the ball an extra second because he doesn't know what the coverage is, and you have the rush that we have right now, it's a recipe for success. in weeks where our defenses look dominant, they've been able to not only confuse quarterbacks, but continue to have constant pressure both from the inside and outside. And we saw that yesterday. Joe Hayden, I thought, was phenomenal in terms of some of the things that he was doing. And as a whole, just the defense, they played a lot more aggressive in coverage compared to some weeks where we talked about them playing more of the off man or just no bump and run. When you play that style like they played yesterday, and you're disruptive and you're challenging these receivers and making the quarterback have to throw in tight windows, it's going to be a recipe for success. And we saw that time and time again, especially on possession downs. I mean, it wasn't, a lot of people wide open running around yesterday. Those throws were in the tight windows. Even the throws that Joe Burrow made, they were just good, high-level NFL throws because the defense was playing really good coverage.
Labs, after the game, Coach Tomlin was asked if that was the best complete game the Steelers played defensively. He said, well, on third downs, yes. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but when you look at the stats in terms of the rushing numbers, the Bengals didn't have Joe Mixon. They still rushed for 139 yards. Does that make you feel different or indifferent about the Steelers' run defense since we've been talking about it, it feels like week after week?
Well, I remember this, and this goes all the way back to the Bill Cowher era in the early 2000s. And ironically, it was against the Bengals. And at the time, the Bengals had Carson Palmer. They had Rudy Johnson was their running back. And then they had Carl Pickens, Ocho Cinco, and T.J. Houshmandzadeh were the receivers. And so often, Bill Cowher would make a decision. Mike Tomlin referred to it, I believe, against Dallas as we recognized we were going to bleed a little bit in the running game. Well, there were games where the Steelers and those early 2000 Steelers defenses were very, very difficult to run against. But there were some games against the Bengals where Rudy Johnson might run for 100 yards, but then they shut down the passing attack, and that kept their point total very low, the Bengals' point total very low, and the Steelers would win the game. So, I don't know that you're going to be able to, in today's NFL, totally shut down an opponent, both running, passing, and on the scoreboard. And so, I didn't perceive the Bengals as being able to run the ball when they needed to run the ball, or to run the ball when the game was hanging in the balance. And so, no, that doesn't really worry me. Those are a lot of meaningless statistics. I thought that Steelers defense played well, and getting just real quick back to the Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. I remember in 2018, Mike Tomlin made the point at halftime of the Browns game in Pittsburgh. It was later. That was Baker Mayfield's first appearance against Steelers, and he told the team in the locker room at halftime, we need to explain to him or show him what playing the Pittsburgh Steelers is about. We heard Mike Tomlin say after the game against the Ravens in Baltimore this year about Lamar Jackson, we respect him, we do not fear him. And so that's a message. He's sending a message to those guys that when they play the Pittsburgh Steelers, they may have some nice hardware at home, they may run around on teams and don't get hit. But when they see those black helmets with the logo only on the one side of the helmet, it's going to be physical, they're going to get hit, and it's going to be painful. And so he's planting a seed, and so far I think it's starting to take root.
All right, we're going to take one more break here. Sorry, Arthur, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, to piggyback on what he was talking about, remember 39 of those yards came on the fake punt run as well by Sean Williams, so that adds to that. But you hit it right on the head. They ran the ball, but they were never effective. And that's the biggest difference. You can have nice rushing yards. And we talked about the Ravens, right, 2 weeks ago. Statistically, they ran the ball really well, but in the second half, when they really needed to run the ball effectively, they could not do it. So that's what you're talking about right there. And I think it's spot on, man. If the team can't run effectively, the yards, it's more so just fluff. It really doesn't have an impact on the outcome. And we saw that firsthand yesterday.
All right, guys, one more break. I know you're all cheering for the New England Patriots last night. We will take a look at the AFC playoff picture when we return here on the Extra Point.
Empty backfield, Burrow on first down, under pressure, down he goes, second sack for T.J. Watt.
The Steelers official mobile app is your window into your favorite team. Behind-the-scenes access.
Oh, man, he is just running so hard.
Live audio, including game broadcasts.
That's what you call smart football.
Statistics. Press conferences and interviews. And Steelers Nation Unite exclusive access and benefits. That's all in the Steelers official mobile app. Download it for free today.
Welcome back, everybody. On hand here for the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface with Craig Wolfley, Arthur Moats, and Bob Labriola. Let's have a little fun and take a look at the AFC North. The Patriots beating the Ravens. So now the Steelers sitting at 9-0. The Ravens and Browns both 6-3. And the Bengals at 2-6-1. And because we can, we're going to look at the big playoff picture in terms of the AFC. The Steelers, Chiefs, and Bills 1, 2, and 3. Everybody else is 6-3 after that. We have the Colts, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Ravens. And crazy enough, the Titans and the Browns, as we sit here today, are on the outside looking in. Of course, one extra team will make it into the playoffs for each conference this year. Wolf, do you still stand by the mentality the Steelers always talk about, win your division and then go from there?
Well, there's no question about it, and there's no better way to win your division than to be undefeated. You know, that's the beauty about it. You don't have to worry about all the different playoff implications. You don't have to worry, does somebody need to help you? You don't have to go out and buy suitcases for some team in the hopes that maybe a little Christmas gift might implore them to play a little harder on the last game of the season or whatever. You don't need any help whatsoever. So there's no question in my mind, the best thing you can do is win the division, and doing so with such style. But remember this, and I always go back to Bill Cowher, circa 2005, you got to play your best football at the end of the year. This is all fine and dandy being 9-0, but your best football needs to come down through the weeks 12 through 16.
I would agree, and everybody does love December football, but Arthur, there is a big game for the Steelers and the Ravens coming up on Thanksgiving night, the first game on Thanksgiving here at Heinz Field. So anything surprise you about the bigger picture looking at the entire AFC right now?
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily surprised by anything. At this point of the season as well, I'm sure when we talk about plus and we're looking at two teams in the Titans and the Browns that would be on the outside, I think the Ravens as the 7th seed right now. That, of course, raises some red flags, but at week 10, it's going to be different as these next 2 to 3 weeks progress. We're going to see a lot more of the playoff picture begin to become more defined. But I think, man, for the Steelers, they're in a beautiful position. From personal experience, I've been here in 2015 where we're looking at the scoreboard late in the year and hoping that a Jets team led by Ryan Fitzpatrick can find a way to lose to the Buffalo Bills. And we're all, sitting here biting our fingernails like, is it going to happen? There's 2 minutes left in the game. This is the scenario this year, man, with the Steelers being where they are from a record standpoint, undefeated. They continue on like this. They don't have to scoreboard watch. They don't have to worry about what's going on around them. And honestly, that's when you're going to get to play your best ball. I think about that following year in 2016 where we ran the table. We went all the way to the AFC Championship game. We weren't concerned about who was doing well or who wasn't. We had our role pretty much defined in terms of where we were going to be from a seeding standpoint, and that really took a load off of us. So I think for the Steelers right now, if you're them, you have to just focus on what are the things that you need to improve on. Running game and still the communication on the back end as a defense. That's what I'm focusing on if I'm the Steelers. I'm not worried about what these other guys are doing because we're in the driver's seat.
All right. Well, you took my next point, so we're going to go there right now. And Labs, I'll start with you on this one. It is 9-0, and that is exciting. And the Steelers are continuing to extend the best start for a team in franchise history. But as Coach always says, when you win, you can kind of cover things and you still have to improve. So Arthur mentioned the run game, Labs. I do want to start there. What do you make of the Steelers not being able to run the ball? Similar to what we saw week 6 when the Browns were here at Heinz Field and James Conner had 100 yards and they were able to really commit to it.
Well, to me, this all started shortly after the 2019 season ended. When Steelers president Art Rooney II does his annual media tour where he talks about what just happened and what he would like to see happen moving forward. And, and if you pay attention to what he says each year, you can kind of get a pretty good feel for the direction that the team is going to go based on what has happened. And this year's theme, I would call it, was that he wanted to see the team run the ball more effectively, to use Arthur's word. And I agree with that. The Steelers are not effective running the football this year. I see, you can throw some statistics up there, 100-yard games for individuals, 100-yard rushing days for the team. But the Steelers generally are not effective running the football yet. And I understand that this is not, the 1960s Big Ten, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. 3 things can happen when you throw the ball and 2 of them are bad. This is still Ben Roethlisberger's team. This is Ben Roethlisberger's offense, and the Steelers ultimately are going to go as far as he can take them. However, having the option of an effective running game might make his job a little bit easier, and I think that it would be conducive for the Steelers to try and make their franchise quarterback's job a little bit easier, and because I do believe he is capable of carrying them all the way.
All right, Wolf, what do you make of the Steelers' run game in terms of the efficiency? I like that, Arthur, in terms of asking this question.
I would have to say that thinking about it, I like what Mike Tomlin said. He said, we need to have a nastier disposition. And I think that's part and parcel of what this line needs to be able to do. We need a little more push at the point of attack. You need to be able to, when you have a trap and you run the counter trap, you've got to be able to get up into the line of scrimmage and create an angle so that you have a back able to either run up inside on the trap or belly over the top and be after the guard logs. And certainly when you run the counter trap, if you get the kick out, you've got to have the trail guy being able to turn up, or vice versa. You turn up and the trail guy will kick out. You've got to be in sync. And right now, it really isn't in sync. And if you get a block on the perimeter, somebody seems to get loose in the middle. If you get a block in the middle, somebody doesn't get a block on the perimeter. So the running game is got to be something. They've got to just button it down and get the dot the I's, cross the T's, and get back with a nasty disposition. To run the ball, you got to have a real desire to be able to run the ball. Stick that forehead in the man's chin, ball up your fist, rip the rack, roll over your front foot, and move his body backwards.
All right, Arthur, what's your take on this? I see you shaking your head in agreement.
Well, I always love when Wolf gets excited about blocking because
he gets closer.
I'm like, he's coming over here. I'm like, okay, let's go then. But for me, man, when I look at the running game, I look at 2 things. Number one, I think that they've been able to not really feel the negative effects of it because of how talented this team is offensively, defensively, and special teams. We've talked about how with most teams, when you talk about being one-dimensional, it's usually a very bad thing and you can't overcome that. The Steelers as a whole, and especially on offense, they have so much talent around that they've been able to almost pseudo-substitute not having a running game for going to the quicker passing attack or playing a lot of empty ball and things like that. And versus this competition, you can get away with that. But obviously, as this thing progresses and the road gets narrow, when we're talking playoffs, AFC Championship game, and Super Bowl, you're going to have a serviceable running game. But the other part of this is I understand what Wolf is saying in terms of that power attack, man. These guys just getting up and winning the line of scrimmage. But I'm also starting to wonder if they aren't really capable of doing that anymore at this level or at this stage of their career. And going back to what we saw earlier in the year with the Matt Canada and Randy Fichtner really getting creative and using some of the pre-snap shifts and motions. To me as a defender, we struggle the most when we have to communicate a lot before the snap happens because now we lose our edge. We can't just line up and say, hey, I'm more man than you. I'm going to win this line of scrimmage. I'm going to win this blade of grass. When you start seeing shifts, motions, jet sweep, ghost motion, as a defense, we're going through 30 different checks. We're going through 30 different, it could be that. And now we've lost our edge. So when the ball is snapped, if I had an advantage, that advantage is gone. Or now you have that advantage. So I think if they could get back to doing some of that stuff as well, it would help them out a lot.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. 9-0, we will take it. As Coach said, they are headed to Jayville on Sunday to face the Jaguars. So we will see everybody back here next Monday to recap that game.